She was called too dark to sell, too masculine to model,
Being masculine, it's an attitude, really.
too aggressive to work with.
Not hold.
Imagine being told your face, your skin, your entire existence was unmarketable.
Very strange features, though, for Americans, you know. They're not used. Everyone thought I have a nose job, for example.
And then imagine proving them all so spectacularly wrong that 50 years later, they're still trying to copy you. Grace Jones didn't just break the rules, she lit them on fire and danced in the ashes. So, what really happened? How did a preacher's daughter from Jamaica become the most intimidating figure in fashion history? And why did she have to lose everything before she could truly win? And why was everyone terrified of her presence? Spanish Town, Jamaica, 1948. Picture this. A little girl in a Pentecostal household so strict that secular music was banned, makeup was the devil's work, and discipline meant getting beaten with a belt. Grace Beverly Jones grew up in a world of thou shalt nots. Her grandparents, who raised her, were devout believers who saw sin in everything, especially in a young girl who might dare to dream beyond church walls. No dancing, no jewelry, no pants for girls, definitely no talking back. When she was 13, Grace left Jamaica to join her parents in Syracuse, New York. And if you think moving to America meant freedom, think again. Her parents had become ministers themselves. The rules followed her across the ocean. But something was already stirring in Grace, something that couldn't be contained by prayer meetings and modest dresses. She'd sneak her aunt's makeup. She'd collect costume jewelry in secret. She'd plaster her bedroom walls with pages torn from Vogue. You have to understand the weight of this rebellion. In a household where even listening to non-religious music could get you punished, where vanity was considered a pathway to hell, young Grace was essentially committing spiritual treason every time she looked at a fashion magazine. Her family saw the devil in red lipstick. She saw possibility. Her brother Noel, he got it. He understood the path. He became a bishop, eventually preaching to thousands in Los Angeles, doing exactly what their family expected. Grace? She went the other way. And I mean all the way. 1968, New York City. 18-year-old Grace Jones walks into Wilhelmina Models with her portfolio. They looked at her 5 feet 8 inches frame, her angular features, her dark skin, and basically said thanks, but no thanks. The American fashion industry had a very specific idea of beauty in the late 60s, and Grace wasn't it. But here's the thing about Grace Jones. When America said no, she didn't beg or plead or try to change herself. She got on a plane. Paris, 1970. Different city, same reaction at first. Agents would literally tell her, "I can't sell you. You're too dark." One agent straight up said those words to her face. "I can't sell you." Can you imagine being told your skin color makes you unsellable? Like you're damaged goods? But Paris had something New York didn't. An underground fashion scene that was starting to question everything. And Grace found her people. She shared an apartment with 2 other unknown models trying to make it, Jerry Hall and Jessica Lange. Yeah, that Jerry Hall and that Jessica Lange. 3 future icons crammed into one Paris flat, surviving on hope and whatever modeling jobs they could book. They'd share clothes, share food, share dreams of making it big. None of them knew they were living with future legends. They were just 3 girls trying to pay rent. Slowly, something shifted. Yves Saint Laurent booked her, then Kenzo. Then the magazines started calling. Elle, Vogue, Paris. Suddenly, the same face that was too dark in New York was exactly what Paris wanted. By 1975, Grace Jones was working constantly, but she wasn't just modeling, she was creating something new. Every photo shoot, every runway, she brought this energy that made people uncomfortable in the best way. She'd show up to shoots and refuse to let makeup artists touch her face. She'd bring her own clothes if she didn't like the styling. She'd suggest poses that no one had seen before, angular, aggressive, almost architectural. Fashion photographers from that era talk about being simultaneously inspired and terrified by her. One famously said, "You didn't direct Grace Jones. You just tried to keep up." Photographers would later say she scared them a little, and that's exactly what she wanted. Let me paint you a picture. 1977, Studio 54, the most exclusive nightclub in the world, where Warhol and Jagger and Bowie all came to play. And right in the center of it all was Grace Jones, not just as a guest, but as a performer. She'd traded runway walks for something bigger. See, Grace had always loved music. Growing up banned from secular songs, she'd absorbed everything she could in secret. And now, with a record deal from Island Records, she was about to show the world what happened when you mixed high fashion with disco rebellion. Her version of La Vie en Rose, the Edith Piaf classic. It shouldn't have worked, a Jamaican model singing a French torch song over a disco beat. But Grace didn't do anything the way it was supposed to be done. She'd appear on stage in architectural costumes that looked like armor, geometric shapes that turned her body into sculpture. And that voice, deep, commanding, almost threatening. It wasn't pretty, it was powerful. The transformation was complete. She'd gone from the preacher's granddaughter who wasn't allowed to wear makeup to this creature of the night who commanded every room she entered. Her shows weren't concerts, they were happenings. She'd emerge in cages, descend from the ceiling, appear in costumes that defied physics. By 1980, she'd evolved again. Working with reggae legends Sly and Robbie, she created Warm Leatherette, then Nightclubbing, albums that defied every category. Was it new wave, reggae, rock? Who knew? Who cared? It was Grace Jones, and that was its own genre. But the persona she was building went beyond music. She worked with artist Jean-Paul Goude, who became her lover and creative partner. Together, they constructed images that still look radical today. Grace with a flat-top fade. Grace painted in tribal patterns. Grace contorted into impossible angles. I wanted the audience to be intimidated, Goude would later explain about their collaboration. And intimidate she did. One night at Studio 54, she performed with Keith Haring, literally painting her body, turning her into a living canvas. This wasn't just performance. It was art. It was threat. It was promise, all at once. The drugs were everywhere in those days. Cocaine was passed around like champagne, just part of the scene, part of the fuel that kept everyone going until dawn. Grace partook like everyone else, not knowing yet what price she'd pay for those wild nights. But in the moment, she was invincible, untouchable, a goddess of the night who made her own rules. October 1981, British television, The Russell Hardy Show. Grace Jones sits next to the host, wearing architectural shoulders, looking like she could slice through steel with her cheekbones. Hardy turns away from her mid-conversation to interview another guest. What happens next becomes legend. Grace doesn't just tap him for attention. She slaps him hard across the back. Then again, and again. On live television, in front of millions of British viewers, the studio audience gasps. Hardy tries to laugh it off, but you can see the shock in his eyes. This glamorous creature just hit him repeatedly on national TV. "Don't turn your back on Grace Jones" becomes an instant catchphrase.
You really want to?
Well, don't turn your back on me anymore.
I can't look at you.
But watch that clip today. Really watch it, and you'll see something else. A black woman refusing to be ignored by a white man who thought he could dismiss her. The British press went wild, calling her volatile, dangerous, unhinged. But Grace? She didn't apologize, didn't explain, just went on being Grace. The aftermath was swift and predictable. Talk show hosts became wary of booking her. Producers warned each other. The fashion world whispered about her difficult reputation. But here's what they missed. Grace Jones had just shown on live television what happened when you tried to make her small. She would not be diminished. She would not be ignored. She would not play nice for anyone's comfort. Years later, she'd joke about that night, blaming bad coke and hallucinating pigeons. But in the moment, it was pure instinct. Someone disrespected her, so she responded the only way that felt right. That slap. It wasn't just about rudeness. It was about every agent who said she was too dark, every photographer who tried to control her, every person who thought they could put Grace Jones in a box and close the lid. By 1985, Grace Jones was everywhere. Conan the Destroyer, where she played a warrior so fierce that Arnold Schwarzenegger reportedly said she was too tough for him. Then the Bond film A View to a Kill, where she nearly stole the movie as Mayday, the deadly assassin. She was simultaneously a supermodel, a music icon, and a movie star. She'd done what no one else had managed, conquered every medium on her own terms. But here's what the magazines didn't show. Grace had discovered cocaine back in the Studio 54 days, when it was just part of the scene. Everyone did it, between sets, between shoots, between flights. It was the fuel that kept the party going. By 1986, the party was killing her. She flew to Jamaica for a holiday and ended up in handcuffs, arrested for cocaine possession, spending 2 nights in jail, telling police, "I don't do drugs." Even as her world spun out of control, the tests came back clean, no drugs in her system. The charges were dropped, but the wake-up call was deafening. Grace Jones, the woman who intimidated everyone, was scared. She checked into rehab, got clean, but the hits kept coming. Her accountant had been stealing from her for years, over half her money gone, taxes unpaid, accounts emptied while she was too high to notice. The betrayal cut deep. This wasn't some stranger. This was someone she'd trusted with everything, someone who smiled at her while robbing her blind. The financial devastation was total. Years of work, of building an empire, vanished into someone else's pockets. Then the plague arrived. That's what they called AIDS in the 80s, the plague, and it was taking everyone Grace knew. One by one, her friends from Studio 54, from Paris, from the fashion world, started dying. "I was depressed for 2 years, watching many of my friends die," she'd later say. Imagine building your entire world, your chosen family, your creative community, and then watching it disappear. Person by person, memorial after memorial. The roll call of the dead was devastating. Designers who'd dressed her, photographers who'd shot her, fellow performers from those wild Studio 54 nights, the makeup artists who'd become friends, the dancers, the DJs, the beautiful boys who'd made New York nightlife magic. All gone. The woman who'd spent a decade being larger than life suddenly wanted to shrink, to disappear, to stop feeling everything so intensely. 1991. Grace Jones sits in an interview and says something that stops everyone cold. "I'm coming back in every way. I'm over this depression, and I don't do drugs anymore." Not "I'm trying to come back," not "I hope to come back," but "I'm coming back," period. She'd spent the late 80s in hell, losing friends, losing money, losing herself. But Grace Jones didn't know how to stay down. She focused on what mattered. Her son Paolo, born in 1979, to her and Jean-Paul Goude, had been watching his mother fall apart. "Mommy, do you remember when you used to be fun?" he'd asked her. "How come you don't laugh anymore?" That question from her child cut deeper than any review or rejection ever could. So Grace rebuilt. Slowly, privately. She moved between Paris and New York, avoiding the spotlight that had nearly burned her alive. She took acting classes. She recorded music when she felt like it. She practiced yoga. She raised her son. She also made a decision that shocked many. She married. In 1996, in a secret ceremony, she wed Attila Altounbey, a Turkish man who'd been working as her bodyguard. It was so private that even close friends didn't know, but the marriage turned dark. Attila became controlling, and Grace had to leave for her safety. They never officially divorced. To this day, she's technically still married to him, a strange footnote to a life that defies conventional narrative. The 90s passed quietly for Grace Jones. No scandals, no drama, just life. Well, except for that time in 1998 when she performed at Disney World, bared her breasts on stage, and got banned for life. Because even a subdued Grace Jones was still Grace Jones. The Disney incident was classic Grace. She was performing at a private event, feeling the music, and simply did what felt natural. The Disney executives were horrified. Families were present. Children might see. They banned her for life from all Disney properties. Grace's response? A shrug. If Mickey Mouse couldn't handle her, that was Mickey's problem. But something else was happening during those quiet years. The world was starting to catch up to her. Young artists were studying her videos. Designers were referencing her looks. Musicians were sampling her songs. Grace Jones had gone from Too Strange to Blueprint. 2008. 19 years after her last studio album, Grace Jones releases Hurricane. She's 60 years old in an industry that throws women away at 30, and here she is, sounding more vital than artists a third her age. The album is personal, raw, mixing autobiography with reggae, with electronic music, with pure attitude. It's the sound of someone who survived everything and lived to sing about it. Critics are stunned. This isn't some nostalgia project. This is Grace Jones proving she's still ahead of the curve. The album includes Corporate Cannibal,
Pleased to have you on my plate.
a video where her face morphs and melts in ways that predict how digital art would evolve. At 60, she's still showing everyone the future. But the real statement comes in 2012, Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee concert, a celebration of British culture in front of Buckingham Palace. Grace Jones takes the stage at 64 years old. She sings Slave to the Rhythm while hula hooping, for 4 minutes straight, without stopping, without dropping the hoop, at 64. The crowd loses their minds, because this isn't just a performance, it's proof that Grace Jones cannot be contained by age, by industry, by anyone's expectations but her own. Think about what that took, the core strength, the breath control to sing while maintaining that motion, the sheer audacity to make that your statement at a royal event. Everyone else did standard performances. Grace Jones hula hooped her way into history. In 2015, she releases her memoir, I'll Never Write My Memoirs. The title itself a contradiction, a joke, a very Grace Jones way of doing things, and in it, she calls out the new generation. Lady Gaga, Madonna, Miley Cyrus, Rihanna. She says they all copied her style without understanding what made it powerful, without taking the same risks, without paying the same prices. I am the blueprint, she writes. And who could argue? She's particularly sharp about the current generation's version of shock. They dress up as though they are challenging the status quo, she writes, but by now, wearing those clothes, pulling those faces, revealing those body parts, and doing those dance moves, they are not challenging, they are conforming. 2018. Jamaica awards Grace Jones the Order of Jamaica, one of the nation's highest honors. The girl from Spanish Town, who was once too dark, too strange, too everything, receives recognition from the country that birthed her. At the ceremony, she's gracious, grateful, talks about how much Jamaica means to her, but you can see it in her eyes. She always knew she'd end up here. Today, Grace Jones is in her 70s, still performing when she feels like it, still living between Paris and Jamaica, still married, technically, to a bodyguard she left in the 90s because she never bothered with the paperwork of divorce. She has a granddaughter now, Paolo's child, and when Grace talks about her, this fierce woman who terrorized the fashion industry becomes soft, almost tender. But don't mistake that tenderness for weakness. Because Grace Jones is still the woman who slapped Russell Hardy, still the woman who told Disney to f*** off, still the woman who pulled a gun on Dolph Lundgren when he tried to leave her. She's still the woman who was told she was too dark to sell and became priceless. When young artists name-drop her in songs, when fashion magazines call her iconic, when documentaries try to capture her essence, they're all circling around the same truth. Grace Jones didn't just break barriers, she made breaking them look easy. She took every rejection, every insult, every attempt to diminish her and transformed it into power. From the Pentecostal churches of Jamaica to the runways of Paris, from Studio 54 to Buckingham Palace, she carved a path that no one else could follow, because no one else had her particular combination of fearlessness, talent, and F*** energy. The industry that once called her unmarketable now studies her every move. The agents who said she was too dark now represent models trying to capture her essence. The world that tried to put her in a box learned that Grace Jones doesn't fit in boxes. She builds her own universe and invites you to visit on her terms. And maybe that's the real legacy. Not the music or the modeling or the movies, but the permission she gave to everyone who came after. Permission to be strange. Permission to be difficult. Permission to demand respect. Permission to slap back when the world turns its back on you. Grace Jones didn't just survive the industry that tried to destroy her. She outlived it, transformed it, and left it forever changed. She's still here, still Grace, still terrifying in all the best ways. And honestly, would we want her any other way?